This is my TechNation visa guide. You can see here the TechNation endorsement form. Now, before you complete this form, you're going to need to complete a stage 1 application. I've got sample applications here set up to give you a head start. So the way that I do these applications is first, basically, once you send off the stage 1 form, then it gives you a deadline to submit the TechNation form, which is an artificial one, basically, in that it's self-imposed. Much better, in my view, to set up the application, complete it in full. That's the TechNation endorsement form. And then when you've got all of your references and your supporting documents and everything's uploaded and you're ready to submit the TechNation endorsement application, only then would you then submit the stage 1 application to the Home Office. Now, I say application, it's more of a notification to the Home Office that you are applying to TechNation, but it is a prerequisite of the TechNation application. Now, in order to unlock this form, basically at the beginning, it asks you for the unique application number for the stage 1 form. And you can't easily see the unique application number until you've actually submitted this stage 1 application, by which time, you've set this deadline, as I say. So the way to do it is to set up the form. And if you click here, this is, again, just purely sample details, John Smith, fictional person. You click download PDF. Then on that PDF, at the top of it, you'll see the unique application number, even before you submit the stage 1 application to the Home Office. So using that unique application number, you can then unlock the TechNation form that enables you to pre-populate everything so that, as I say, you can submit them basically at the same time. Stage 1 notification first and then the endorsement, but one after the other at the same time once you're ready. Now, I'll go through the TechNation form. I mean, the stage 1 application, there's not really much of note. I've put some sample details here for you to have a look at. But basically, it does, I suppose, one important point it does ask you is state your field of talent. And I'd usually put in there digital technology. You can have issues later, depending on how, basically, if you unnecessarily narrowly describe what you're doing there, both in stage 1 form and in the stage 2 form, which I'll talk about. So after you get the endorsement, if you're fortunate enough to get the endorsement, then again, you have to state the field of talent. This is from the stage 2 form. Again, I'd put digital technology, which is the widest categorization of TechNation eligible activities. Because you may find that once you're in the UK, you think you're going to be doing one specific thing in data analysis or cloud computing, but it turns out to be that you're doing something else. And if you've narrowly described the field, then that can create an issue when later you have to prove that you've earned money in your specialist field. So I put it down as digital technology. Now, on the application form itself, this is what it looks like. As I say, prerequisites, you have that unique application number. I've told you how to generate that. You can put a placeholder entry in here as to when you submitted the stage 1 application form, because when you'll be completing this, hopefully you will not have submitted your stage 1 application form yet. And then, its name, bio details, so far so unremarkable. You do have to put in your intended residential address in the UK. This is actually quite important because I've seen someone refused. He came to me for the first time asking for help with appeal. And what he'd done is he'd put in an address outside of London in the north, and the response from TechNation was really kind of snarky, sarcastic. It was a weird response. But what they said is, "Oh, we're not aware of any blockchain activity in where in this remote place in the north of England," and so basically that was a ground for refusal. So if you're putting in your residential address, do have a think about where you're going to be and if there is actually any activity going on there, right? Most people are going to be living in and around London in the technology field, not exclusively. There's some great cities up north, but you have to kind of align it in that sense. So do be conscious of that. You don't actually have to have an address booked there. You can say to be confirmed, but you do have to state here the area of England that you're living in. Now, it asks here, how did you hear about Global Talent Visa and so on, and then some marketing type points. In other words, how did you find us? But there's this point is important, fast track options. So there is a fast track if you're in one of the eligible incubators like Techstars here, and a couple of the incubators I've helped lots of their members through. It's not necessarily a slam dunk though. If you're in the incubator, if you're accepted to one of them, it just means that there'll be a faster consideration. But it definitely is not going to disadvantage you. Put it that way. How long has your career been in digital technology? And this is important. So basically, if you'll need to work out whether you're applying under the promise route or the talent route. They will refuse to consider you under promise, which is a much easier criterion to meet. But they refuse to consider you if you have more than 5 years experience in digital technology. And this is a moot point, okay, where especially the current panel hasn't been particularly consistent. So the approach they should be taking is if you've done non-digital tech experience, let's say after you graduate, you have a bit of experience outside of tech, and then you go into technology, they shouldn't really be taking into account that experience outside of tech towards the 5 years. In other words, you only started in technology when you had your first tech job, but they don't necessarily consistently take that approach. And if they want to refuse your application, then they'll usually cite that as a ground. In other words, well, this person is applying under promise, but we see from their CV that they've had more than 5 years. Therefore, we're going to consider them against the higher criteria under talent, and sorry, you don't meet them. And you would have prepped your whole application on the basis of promise to meet the lower threshold. So necessarily, you may not have produced sufficient material to meet the talent criteria. So that's a problem. So be careful of that field. How long has your career been in the digital technology sector? And then it says, look, please indicate your sector. And let me just go into edit so we can have a look at the options together. The UI on the form is really ancient. So let's just go back. Previous. Yeah. So just to go back to our previous points, that it's either more or less than 5 years in digital tech. So if you're going for promise, then you'll want to select less than 5 years, if that is accurate. Please indicate your sector. So look, these are the eligible sectors, and as I mentioned in my last video, it's really quite generic. Look, health tech, you've got super generic categories like digital advertising and marketing, apps and software development, telecommunications and networking. So very, very broad indeed. And it reflects the broad range of applications. But remember, this is subject to 2 caveats. Number one, it must be product-led digital tech experience in order to be eligible. Although I've got through some applications where it's been quite borderline on that, where, accent hasn't necessarily been on product versus services. Where it is services, it's got to be, there's more of a burden to show that it's innovative. But they want really the tech that you've been working on to be proprietary and to be sold. I think the most common point I come across is where someone's been developing tech, but it's been an internal tool that has not been sold. In other words, the company doesn't make its money from selling that thing. They might have developed an internal HR system or something like that, which is used by the whole company. It's really super important, but it hasn't itself been monetized in the direct sense, or productized, or they have a service, but the service hasn't really been productized. Where I think it's generally okay is if there's a product, but there's a services element where you have to actually implement that product within the client. Now, then they'll ask you for your highest form of education. Now, I have got through applications. There's no requirement, remember, for someone in global talent to have a degree. So I've got through applications where where my client has not got even a bachelor's degree, no degree, but they've still got through. So bear that in mind. Don't be intimidated by this section. Current employment, and this is where you'll want to list all of the entities. Basically, it asks you, look, do you have any active digital tech companies you've established? And please provide the details of the active ones you've established. Do you have any dissolved digital tech businesses? And you want to just enter all of them with the company registration numbers. Now, when it comes to annual salary, look, it says and or other compensation. So they attach great weight at TechNation to this field. And it's expressly in the guidance one of the bases for meeting the mandatory criteria. In other words, you have a high salary or a high total package. So don't just put in the basic pay, put in the full package. And then I often put in the value of the shares that you get. Now, I appreciate it's a bit arbitrary, right? Because the shares, their value will fluctuate. But I put that into the calculation there with a breakdown. There is a limited character field there, but I'd max that out as far as you can. Next. So then it asks, are you going for exceptional talent or promise? Now, this is a super important field. Now, What is the main reason you've chosen to apply for the route of exceptional talent? So here you can, I think this is really, really important, where you basically express in a couple of sentences or 3 sentences. I think that's max basically because of the character limit. I would get your strong points across, right? If you sold your company, then that should be in the first sentence. But cut out all of the fluff and give your strong points first. The key points that summarize everything, because I think they will jump to that and read that first, basically. Then the key choice of criterion. So you got to go for the mandatory criterion, and most of my clients will go for optional criteria 1 and 3, so innovation and impact. But these two have that limitation, product-led digital tech experience. So for this one, proof of recognition for work beyond your occupation that contributes to the advancement of the field, that one doesn't have such a restriction. Likewise for academia. So but bear that in mind. But the choice here is really important. And in other videos of mine, I've set out how you can structure those specific items of evidence. Remember, don't use ChatGPT to produce these big parts. Basically, the emphasis at the moment with the current panel is they want the written content to go into the reference letters. Be careful about common signs of authorship, where you're providing an initial draft or whatever. And you can instantly see if something's been written on ChatGPT, that itself will be a ground of refusal. And if you get taken down on that, then you're going to have to struggle with future applications as well. So be careful about that written content, really primarily within the references, and clarificatory sort of narrated content in the supporting documents with the external source materials. So TechNation at the moment seems to be moving more towards the direction of, say, the Arts Council and Royal Society in terms of their approach. Personal statement. So the main mistake I see people make here is that they fill it with platitudes about the UK and the tech sector. I just cut out all of that. I would have a short paragraph on what you're going to be doing in the UK. And the rest of it, in terms of my personal approach to these applications, I tend to summarize the application with the key points and set out how you've actually structured it to meet the criteria. So it's a walkthrough. There should also be some narrative content, life story type content in there as well. So it's a mixture of narrative and structured exposition of your application, plus a short paragraph on what you're going to be doing in the UK, because there needs to be a compelling reason there. But it's not an opportunity to set out the business plan for this business you're going to be for a new business that you're going to be setting up. And then the referee details, make sure to put in the LinkedIn profiles for them. So look, I'll do I've got some more content coming up to help you with the evidence items. There's got to be 2 each for each of the ones that you select. You can go for alternatives. I have done that in the past and it's been okay, but they don't seem to prefer you to pin your colors to the mast and identify the 3 that you're relying on. If you run them in the alternative, it seems to irritate them, although there's nothing in law preventing you from doing that, as long as you have 2 each for each of the ones you select, including the mandatory criteria. So once you submit that, as I say, you've got the stage 2 application. You should put digital tech in there. Remember that when you do stage 1, just to switch back to stage 1, it asks, let me just bring that up. Stage 1 and stage 2, this is the stage 2 form. It asks, are you applying, just show you the field. Basically, are you applying for stage 1 at the same time as you're applying for stage 2? And you should select, at stage 1, you should select, no, let me just bring that up, there we are, sorry. So stage 1 form. Are you applying for entry clearance or leave to remain? Stage 2 is the same as making this application for endorsement at stage 1. So you should normally say no. I mean, if you're successful, then fine. But it's prudent to just apply for stage 1 at the beginning and not make your application for entry clearance. It's just unnecessary to apply for stage 2. And my applications, stage 2 applications where the stage 1 has been granted, go through very, very quickly indeed. So I hope that's a helpful guide to the TechNation visa and the endorsement aspect of it in terms of process and the 3 forms that need to be completed. If you do want help with your application, then I'd be very pleased to assist you. I have a consultation service and you can get me on the link below. Good luck with your application. Bye for now.